Radio Network.
If you've been putting off going to the dentist, now is the time to get the dental work you need. JJ Dental is offering an incredible deal for new patients. A $69 new patient special. It includes a comprehensive exam by the dentist, a full series of x-rays, and a cleaning. Regular value, $305. But for the month of June at JJ Dental, just $69. JJ Dental wants to be your family dentist. Call 954-463-7262. 954-463-7262.
The skills you can develop as a soldier in the Army National Guard can give you an edge in the high-tech job market of tomorrow. The Guard offers career training to take advantage of your skills in science, technology, engineering, and math that can help give you a leg up to a high-paying and rewarding STEM profession. Get a head start on your career while earning money to pay for college. Log on to NationalGuard.com to learn about all of the STEM career opportunities in the Army National Guard. Sponsored by the Florida Army National Guard. Aired by the Florida Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Talk here. Talk there. Talk 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. The Health and Wealth Radio Network. WNN.
All County Healthcare, Inc. is locally owned and operated, serving the Tri-County area, Palm Beach, Dade, and Broward counties for the last 25 years. The practice of medicine is changing dramatically. All County Healthcare, Inc. Nurses and healthcare professionals come into your home to service your medical needs, providing you the fastest and best care possible. For more information, call 954-717-7027. And remember, Medicare home care is covered by Part A of Medicare with no out-of-pocket cost to you. It's your decision and only your decision on what healthcare agency you use. Call today. All County Home Health Care, Inc. at 954-717-7027. License 200999096. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Amp2.tv presents You and Your Doctor, teaching you to live a longer and healthier life. Proudly sponsored by All County Healthcare, where people are the heart of our business. All County Healthcare is a Medicare certified agency where one call will service all your home care health needs. For more information, call 954-717-7027 or visit our website, allcountyhealthcare.com. Now, let's get informed to living a longer and healthier life. Here is your host for today's show.
Hello, South Florida and beyond, and welcome to the You and Your Doctor show. Tonight we're going to be talking a lot about gastroenterology, or GI. Our doctor this evening is Dr. Naveen Reddy, so without further ado, welcome to the program. Dr. Reddy, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
And thanks for joining us on this adventure of health. We don't get to talk GI too much on this show. I've been doing it for 3 years, but I'm really glad to have you because there's a lot going on in the GI world. But first, introduce us to yourself. Where did you do your education? Start with that, if you would.
Well, I grew up in Central Florida. I grew up close to Ocala in an area called Citrus County, and then I went up to Boston, where I was there for undergrad through my internal medicine residency. After finishing my residency, I decided I wanted to move back to Florida, and I did my fellowship at University of Miami, Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami. And I've been in the Palm Beach County area for about 3 years. My practice is currently based primarily out of Wellington, but I also go to a lot of other hospitals to see my patients.
That's great. From Ocala to Boston to Miami and back. That is quite a trip there. So we're glad to have you in the Palm Beach County area. Now, tell us, is with GIs or gastroenterologists, is that something that should look for a board certification when I'm looking for a GI or if I'm referred to one?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's something that you have to do a fellowship after your internal medicine training for. So typically, after medical school, people go to a residency, whether it's surgical or internal medicine. So you have to do 3 years of residency, and now it's 3 years of fellowship for a GI fellowship. So you definitely want to have someone who's board certified to make sure that they're doing things properly and they're accredited and qualified to manage your healthcare issues.
And so you're certified, I have here, is it the American Board of Internal Medicine, and then also, I guess it's a sub-boardification there from the American Board of Internal Medicine and Gastroenterology?
That's correct, yeah. I had my internal medicine boards, completed those in 2012 after I finished my residency, and I completed my GI boards in 2015 after I finished my fellowship.
Okay, so we got all the boards out of the way. You are a board-certified gastroenterologist. That is great to hear. Right here in our area, and I'm going to give out the information a few times. People can also check us out on All County Healthcare INC's Facebook live page where we're streaming as well. Now, you're one of the few gastroenterologists in the area who releases data on quality metrics in the practice that have a significant impact on the quality of colonoscopies as well as risk of missed cancers. I'm not sure if I've seen that. I come across that in my experience here on the radio show. So tell us a little bit about that and why you decide to release the data publicly.
Yeah, so colonoscopy is probably the most commonly used test for colon cancer screening. And then over the past decade or so, they've really been looking into what we can do to improve the quality of colonoscopies in patients. Because the point of a colonoscopy is, one, to diagnose a cancer, but preferably to prevent a cancer from happening. So when we're doing that, the GI boards have gotten together, and a lot of the experts have sat together and come up with a series of criteria that they define as what makes a quality colonoscopy. And they look at this over a series of, 100 or 1,000 colonoscopies you do, because, you can look at one procedure, but really it's what you do over time that's really important. So when they look at that, they have a few quality metrics, including the quality of your bowel prep. I know the patients hate taking a bowel prep. That's the stuff that people complain about most often for colonoscopies, but we want to make sure it's clean, because if we can't see what we're looking at, you're not really doing much good with the colonoscopy. The next thing is what we call a cecal intubation. The cecum is the beginning or end of the colon, depending on which way you're going. So we want to make sure that you get to the part of the colon so you can examine all of the colon. So really, the point of the colonoscopy is to get to the cecum, which is, as I said before, the beginning or end, depending on which way you're doing the scope or having a bowel movement, and then you work your way back. When you're working your way back, you're supposed to be spending at least 6 minutes for doing the withdrawal, and that's probably the key metric that we're looking at nowadays, so you can tell right away. Because they found that people who took less than 6 minutes to do a withdrawal for colonoscopies tended to find less polyps, and their patients tended to have more what we call interval cancers. So an interval cancer is a cancer that is found between the time that you had your colonoscopy and you're supposed to have a repeat. Because based on what we find, we tell people to repeat in 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years. So they found that people who came out kind of quickly weren't doing a very good job of looking behind folds and looking for polyps, or maybe looking at more subtle findings. They would hopefully find big polyps and cancers, but they wouldn't find the things that would could be removed that would prevent a potential cancer. And then outside of that, the other thing we look for is the adenoma detection rate. So adenomas are a certain type of polyps. Polyps are growths that come out of the colon wall that over time can develop into cancer. So what we want to do is we want to find a certain percentage of these polyps during the colonoscopies to make sure that we're doing a good enough job. The current standard that they set of adenoma detection rate is around 25%, because they found that when they did these big studies of dozens of gastroenterologists in big groups, they found that the people who tended to have less than 25% detection rates tended to have more cancers in their patients in between their colonoscopies. So I've decided to track my measures because it's one of those things, if you're not measuring it, you can't manage it. So it's one of these things that it's important for me to do, not just for myself, but also for my patients. Because if I notice that my adenoma detection rate's dropping to a subpar level, maybe I need to work on something with my technique or spend more time looking for these polyps. So that's why I do it. Really, it's for my patients.
That's great, Dr. Reddy, and that's some fascinating info, and thank you for sharing that. I just want to make a couple comments on that. So, yeah, it sounds like it's not a race. It's definitely the time to make sure that everything is seen, and if there's any cancers to notice them, or those polyps, I should say. And then the other comment I wanted to make, I've not yet had a colonoscopy, but I'm kind of getting to that age, and you may share some info. I may already be at that age. I know there's some new screening ages, but I wanted to say a lot of people have told me sometimes with colonoscopies, sometimes the hardest part is that prep that you talked about, that you started with.
Yeah, usually the two things that I tell the patients usually will be the most common complaints are the prep, because you're causing yourself to have diarrhea the night and the morning of the procedure, the night before and the morning of the procedure, and then also afterwards they might feel a little bit of bloating or distension afterwards, because when we do a colonoscopy we need to be able to see the wall, so we need to put some air in there. But that's just relieved just by letting the air go, and we usually try to suction most of that out. But yeah, the procedures generally are done with anesthesia, so patients are asleep during these procedures, so they don't really feel anything at all during the procedure.
And there's something also I learned from doing this radio show. I'm learning a lot on this show, but colonoscopies aren't just done by colon and rectal surgeons. They're also done by gastroenterologists like Dr. Reddy as well, or GIs. Dr. Reddy, I didn't ask you before. Was I getting your first name right? Is it Dr. Naveen Reddy?
Yeah, Naveen, that's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not very gentleman at not asking you there, and just kind of got right to it because I was excited to have you on the program. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Reddy. His website is palmbeachgi.com, and he's in Wellington. It's 10101. 10101. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Reddy. Forest Hill Boulevard in Wellington, correct?
Actually, that's where the hospital's lolocated.
Oh, I got it wrong. Sorry about that.
My address is actually 1397 Medical Park Boulevard, Suite 380. And it's in Wellington. It's right on the campus of the hospital. It's kind of in the northwest corner of the campus. It's just if you're walking out the front door of the hospital, it's couple of 100 yards from the hospital, so it's walking distance, depending on if it's raining or not.
Okay, yeah, like today. So yeah, sorry about that. I gave out the hospital's address, but yours is 1397 Medical Park Boulevard, Suite 380.
That's correct.
In Wellington, thank you. And what's your phone number there?
My office number is 561-619-7620.
All right, thank you. Now, tell us a little bit about your areas of expertise, or as sometimes listed as areas of interest as well, in office.
Yeah, I do a little bit of everything. I mean, the areas that I probably do most commonly are obviously the colon cancer screening that we just talked about. I also do a lot of liver disease, including hepatitis C. I also do manage IBD. Liver disease and hepatitis C is actually a very interesting area at this point, because I'm sure you guys have seen the commercials either in magazines or on TV about the new hepatitis C treatments that are out there, and they're very effective. Over the past 5 to 6 years, there's been a revolution in hepatitis C treatment, and it's one of the things that I actually do when I have my patients come in for colonoscopies. Most of them actually fall into the age range where they recommend screening for hepatitis C too. The recommendations for hepatitis C screening are those baby boomers born between 1945, individuals with a history of tattoos, IV drug use, or dialysis, having been treated with dialysis, and it's as simple as a one-time screening test. And it's important because actually a lot of people have hepatitis C without knowing it. It's because until around 1990 we hadn't even discovered hepatitis C. So people might have gotten a transfusion from a patient who had hepatitis C because they had no way for testing for it. So I do a lot of management of that too. So those are probably my main areas that I manage, but do a little bit of everything, including people who have heartburn, bloating, and whatever other issues my patients need help with.
I guess you see a lot of gluten intolerance, and then lately I learned of Crohn's disease because my favorite guitarist, Mike McCready of Pearl Jam, has been public about Crohn's disease, and I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with, correct me if I'm wrong, ulcerative colitis.
Yeah, ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease are two forms of inflammatory bowel disease, and there are quite a few individuals, pretty well-known individuals who do have inflammatory bowel disease. I mean, one of the ones that you guys might have seen on TV recently actually is Larry Nance Jr. He's a forward for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he has been pretty public with his diagnosis. He actually is the son of a former NBA All-Star, and they didn't realize he had Crohn's disease when he was growing up, but they noticed, like, hey, the father's 6'10", and the kid's 5'7" in high school. What's going on here? And they found out actually he had Crohn's disease, and then when he got that treated, he actually started growing. And now, I don't know exactly how tall he is, but I think he's like 6'7" or 6'8", so definitely shot up after he got that under control.
Yeah, and his dad played in the NBA too, I think for Cleveland as well, right?
Yeah, he did, actually. I think he was a slam dunk champ, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you are. Are you a basketball guy?
Yeah, actually I am too, so.
Nice. Well, who's your team?
Well, I spent a lot of time in Boston, so I've started to become a Celtics fan.
Oh, of course.
For that, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll let you slide on that one. I mean, this is Miami Heat territory, but
I won't even get into football then. So.
All right, we won't go there. Well, let's take. I'm gonna just take a quick break. On the other side, I want to talk a little bit about that new colonoscopy screening age. That the news of that on the You and Your Doctor show. We'll be right back.
All County Healthcare, Inc. is locally owned and operated, serving the Tri-County area, Palm Beach, Dade, and Broward counties for the last 25 years. The practice of medicine is changing dramatically. All County Healthcare, Inc. still does it the old-fashioned way, where our nurses and healthcare professionals come into your home to service your medical needs, providing you the fastest and best care possible. For more information, call 954-717-7027. And remember, Medicare home care is covered by Part A of Medicare with no out-of-pocket cost to you. It's your decision, and only your decision, on what healthcare agency you use. Call today. All County Home Health Care, Inc. at 954-717-7027. License 200999096. You are listening to You and Your Doctor, Living Longer and Healthier, an informative show that helps you find answers to questions you always wanted to ask but did not have that somebody that could make a difference in your life. Call into the show if you have a question at 888-565-1470, and we will put you on the air to inform all our listeners. Now, back to our show.
We're back on the You and Your Doctor show with Dr. Naveen Reddy, gastroenterologist, GI, 1397 Medical Park Boulevard, Suite 380 in Wellington, 561-619-7620. He's got a great website with a ton of info, palmbeachgi.com, and I'll give out that info once again before we break for the evening. Dr. Reddy talked a little bit before about those new colonoscopy guidelines. That's big news because that's shaved off a few years. What's going on with those guidelines, and what can you tell us?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I'd point out is that there are multiple societies that put out guidelines. The society that just put out guidelines a couple of weeks ago was the American Cancer Society. The other three societies that do put out guidelines are the American College of Gastroenterology, the American Gastroenterological Association, and the United States Preventative Service and Task Force. The USPSTF is the latter one. That one's made a little bit of noise recently because they were the ones who were offering changes in guidelines for mammography and prostate cancer screening. So generally the consensus until this most recent guideline that came out less than a month ago from the American Cancer Society was that we were supposed to start screening on individuals at the age of 50. The only exceptions were that for African Americans, we recommend starting at the age of 45 because they have higher rates of colon cancer in general, for what reasons that we can't completely explain. The other reasons to start screening earlier are if people do have a history of certain types of genetic syndromes, like Lynch syndrome, you might have heard of, or FAP is another syndrome, familial adenomatous polyposis syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, or if you have a strong family history. So up until this newest guideline, really the general recommendation had been to start at 50, and now the American Cancer Society suggested that we should be starting at 45 instead of 50.
I see. Okay, so yeah, it wasn't all the organizations, it was just one. I should have picked that up. Now, is this something that you should have a conversation when you get close to that age with your primary care, or do people actually have GIs, or are they referred? I guess if you have GI ailments, you'd probably have a GI, like if you have heart ailments, you'd have a cardiologist, or is it referred to?
Yeah, it's definitely worth a conversation with either your primary care provider or your GI, whoever you're seeing. The one thing I would just point out, you weren't necessarily wrong in terms of the one society saying it for the other societies. The other societies have come out with guidelines over time. Like, for example, the American College of Gastroenterology, their most recent guidelines are almost 8 years old now. And so the American Cancer Society came out with their guidelines, and actually the American Gastroenterological Association put out a statement saying, hey, we kind of agree with these new guidelines, although they haven't officially revised their guidelines. But it's definitely something worthwhile talking to your doctor or healthcare provider about. whether or not you should be getting screened or not.
Okay, and now once you do start the screenings, when you reach that age, how often do you need to be screened? Start, I guess, if there's no no signs of any polyp development.
So I guess the first thing I'd point out that there are a couple of different ways of being screened. Everybody talks about colonoscopy, and being a GI, that's the one that we tend to gravitate towards because that's the one that we actually do and do procedure-wise. But there are really 3 or 4 different ways that you can be screened. The most common one is a colonoscopy that everyone talks about. If you have that, you have a good colonoscopy prep, there are no polyps. We recommend repeating a colonoscopy in 10 years. So you have a pretty good time to break in between your procedures. The other options are you can do a flexible sigmoidoscopy, which is kind of like a mini colonoscopy. You don't evaluate the entire colon, you just kind of evaluate kind of the second half or the last third of the colon with that one. You do that. If you do that option, it's every 5 years. There's also what they call a CT colonography. This was pretty popular in the news several years ago, maybe about like 8 to 10 years ago. And that one they recommend every 5 years if you're going to choose that option. And finally, the other options are these stool-based tests. And these are tests where your provider takes a stool sample and sends it off to a lab to see if there's either traces of blood, which is what they call occult blood testing or a FIT testing, or the other one that's actually been in the news recently is stool-based DNA testing. That you might have heard of Cologuard. They have the commercials they put on the TV where there's a piece of toilet paper that I think gets put into a box and sent off in the mail. I don't think that's the exact way that they want it. I don't think your mailman would appreciate it necessarily, but that's the ads that they've been putting on.
That's their marketing.
Yeah, so if you do the occult blood testing, then you do it every year. But if you do the stool-based testing, the recommendation is stool-based DNA testing, that Cologuard, that would be every 3 years. So once again, the stool-based testing is every 1 to 3 years, depending on what you do. The mini colonoscopy or the CT scan is every 5 years, and the colonoscopy is every 10 years, if everything's normal.
Great information here with Dr. Naveen Reddy, gastroenterologist. His website is palmbeachgi.com. He's located right on the campus of Wellington Regional Medical Center at 1397 Medical Park Boulevard, Suite 380 in Wellington, 561-619-7620. Dr. Reddy, are there risk factors that can cause a person to be at a higher than average risk for colon cancer?
Yeah, I would say the biggest risk factors for people are, one is certainly genetics. If you do have a family history, either one of these syndromes, or you just have a family member who had a big polyp or colon cancer, either before the age of first-degree relative before the age of 60 or multiple first-degree relatives at any point. People who have inflammatory bowel disease are at increased risk, as are people depending on their weight, and smoking also increase your risk of having colon cancer.
So, and also, I think you mentioned there's strong family history as well. So if it's running in the family, it's something that, well, doctors nowadays, they ask a lot of questions about the family history more so than ever, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really important part. You can't completely explain colon cancer risk based on the family history, but it does suggest that there might be a genetic component, even if we don't have a defined genetic syndrome for those individuals yet. It does suggest that those people should be on a more alert that they should be getting screened. And those actually, interestingly, those patients who have the family history, they're a little bit different than the regular individuals. Not only do we recommend screening them earlier, but we also recommend screening them more often, even if they have a colonoscopy that doesn't have any polyps on it.
Okay, so some of the advisory flags that should go up: strong family history, obviously smoking, which we hear with all forms of cancer. You mentioned obesity as well is very important. I imagine, just having a good diet in general as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I generally tell people, just eat a healthy diet. More fiber, less red meat. I think that's kind of been the mantra for most recommendations for good health care for people. So that's generally what the data has shown thus far. Nice,
and we're here with Dr. Naveen Reddy. He's a gastroenterologist. on staff at Wellington Regional Medical Center, and his office is on campus there. Now we're kind of taking the talk here full circle. We're kind of getting back to, so if people also have a personal history of inflammatory bowel disease or ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, that can also be something that could be looked at in terms of maybe not a sign or symptom, but a flag for colon cancer. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. So really the biggest risk factor for those patients who have inflammatory bowel disease is the degree of inflammation. That's why I stress so much to my patients the importance of getting rid of the inflammation in the colon. So those patients, depending on whether they have ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease and the extent of involvement, might need to have almost annual screenings and different techniques used on the colonoscopies to make sure that there's no more subtle cancers, because individuals with inflammatory bowel disease have a greater risk of developing colon cancer than individuals who don't have inflammatory bowel disease.
Well, Dr. Reddy, thanks for the great information tonight about gastroenterology, about colon cancer, the screenings as well. It's been a very informative discussion. I just have one more question I always like to ask at the end. We got about a minute left. What are your hobbies and passions in life outside of medicine?
Well, I enjoy playing sports. I used to play tennis quite a bit.
Oh, you're good. Keep going.
Okay, play tennis quite a bit. But, I enjoy running and working out, and I used to enjoy traveling, but now I'm working so much that I haven't had a chance to travel quite as much.
Yeah, you're building a practice there out in Wellington, and it sounds like you're the guy to go see out there for gastroenterology, so that's great. And we know you're a Boston Celtics fan, but we won't hold that against you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for coming on the You and Your Doctor show. I'd like to have you on again in the future and talk a little bit more. That's Dr. Naveen Reddy, gastroenterology, PalmBeachGI.com, 561-619-7620. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for letting us share with you a longer and healthier lifestyle. If you have a doctor or are a doctor and wish to be on the show, call AMP2TV at 866-244-5422 and we will put you on the air as soon as possible. Tune in next week for more information on living longer and having a healthier life. The opinions expressed